Hello everyone, I am Tessellating Hexagons, and I don't know how y'all put up with me with all these random breaks between the reviews, because it was a bit further ago than yesterday, but recently Latvia chose their song for Eurovision 2020. Let's just pretend it was yesterday, because that's how these reviews usually go, and I'm beating myself up to hell and back over it, so let's just not go there. So yes, after many years and attempts for multiple countries, Latvia has finally given Samanta a chance at Eurovision. Now that name might sound a little bit strange because I don't know how to pronounce the L with a hook underneath, but also because she's better known by her stage name of Samanta Tīna, and a song called Still Breathing this time. It's completely in English, music by Samanta herself, and lyrics by Aminata, which I've not heard that name in a while, a couple of years. She was last present at Eurovision, well, in person, 2015. She also co-wrote the 2016 Latvia entry, and then she's sort of been absent since, apart from in national finals. So, on paper, this should show some degree of promise. You've got the Latvian Sanna Nielsen, and also the Latvian hero lady who has got a lot of hype for her country. So, yeah, theoretically, this should be incredible. But is it? Oh, Latvia, how I have missed your classic pedigree of weird entries. And I don't mean that as an insult. Latvia has always just kind of bounced to their own beat, and honestly, I respect that. They've given us Wolves of the Sea, and Probka, and Cake to Bake, and Line, and, of course, Funny Girl. So, as that shows, Latvia is kind of at its best when it's allowed to just go nuts and do whatever. But I completely see where people are coming from when they say that this year, they've taken that a little bit too far. Samanta's been trying to represent her country and Lithuania, as I said earlier, for quite a few years, so, good for her for finally breaking through, but I do worry. Maybe she's lost sight of why she's there in the first place with this one. Is it unlistenable? Oh no. Actually, it's actually kind of fun to listen to. And you can clearly hear which parts are Samanta's doing and which parts are Aminata. But at the same time, it kind of sounds like it's trying to be about 3 different songs all at once. To its credit, it handles that a lot better than, say, Norway in 2016. But the aftertaste of this one is a distinct shade of, what did I just witness? Is that a good thing? You decide. As always, let's start with the positives, because there are positives here. Despite the negative reactions to this song that I've seen online, I did still find some things that, well, certainly that I like about this one, and you might join in that, and even if you don't, well, I do, so allow me to be selfish here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I actually enjoy the explosive electronic sort of drop section. I know a lot of people have taken against it, and I completely see why, don't worry. But I enjoy it. It's such a rush of energy that lands in just the right way to be pleasing to my ears. It took me a while to get used to the slightly wonky rhythm of it, which was... I've had that problem with Aminata songs before, as I'm sure veterans of the channel will remember, but in this case, yeah, I think it works personally. Of course, the song as a whole has that kind of massive presence to it anyway, which is also good unto itself. Samanta's vocals are actually more than decent, especially for the louder parts of the song, and the inclusion of the trio of interstellar housekeepers acts as a foil to her comparatively lower, more polyphonic notes. In essence, whether the song realises how off-puttingly strange it is one thing, but Samanta clearly believes in it, and that lends the whole thing at least some credibility, especially live. Now, strictly speaking, the music was all Samanta's doing, but you can still hear in the instrumentation that Aminata was definitely involved in this song, and in no small way. Musically, it's engaging, albeit in a rather disjointed, sort of almost art house kind of way. And while the exact wording of the lyrics is nothing to write home about, it still suits the song's syllabic pattern to the ground, creating, well, maybe not a satisfying piece of performance art per se, but a not terrible sounding one? That kind of sums up the song as a whole, really. It's a weird piece of performance art with a solid message buried in there somewhere, and it might just well be banking on the memorability factor of being so all-out weird. If it winds up in a semi-final full of ballads and Fuego clones, it's absolutely going to stand out for doing its own thing. It's an interesting approach, I will give it that. You can't say this has been done at Eurovision before, though a certain national finalist for Slovenia came very, very close last year, but that didn't happen. Right, so the negative side of the song. I'm not going to overindulge here because I do want to be fair towards the song, which is more than most of the fandom has been thus far. Yes, I'm calling you out. Nevertheless, let's not mince words. The staging is kind of a mess at the moment. On first watching, I didn't get the space age hair salon. I didn't get the spray bottles. I didn't and still don't get Samantha's dad dancing, which honestly detracts much more than it adds, but time and a place. Watching the music video does at least give it a bit more context, but at Eurovision, most viewers won't have seen the music video, and even then, the message it's going for gets more than a little bit muddied by the, let's call it artistry, perhaps? So maybe it's trying to go all in on the look, here's something you've never seen before kind of aspect, but if so, then it's kind of royally failing where Australia is massively succeeding this year. Much like the track itself, the staging is disjointed and rough around the edges. While the latter can be fixed in time for Rotterdam, I fear for the prospects of the former, to be honest. By itself, there are more than a few good ideas here, but they don't mesh that well. Put simply, though the individual parts of the song are interesting, the repeated chorus from the Terminator Dinner Ladies, "Hello everyone, I am Terminator Dinner Lady," the aggressive electronic drop section, the performance Samantha gives, especially early on by herself, they don't come together to form something greater than, or even equal to, the sum of its parts. This song is just a mood board for hyperstimulation and really not all that much else, and that's kind of a shame. Split this up into the 3 or so songs it started life as, and I'd probably enjoy each one by itself. Well, maybe with one exception, and I'm not alone in saying this. The trap beat, not rap section is just difficult to watch. The lyrics themselves at that point are pretty decent, albeit incredibly meme-worthy at this point, and I do stand by my defense of San Marino in 2018. White woman rapping does not automatically mean bad. It's just, with the dad dancing, that's the bit I really take umbrage with, and the sheer absurdity of everything else going on in the performance, it just comes across as a desperate attempt to hit as many different audience demographics as possible. That's not to say that it can't work. Slovenia 2018 made that sort of thing work, but then again, the entirety of that song was focused on doing so. It's just a mess inside a larger mess. It's like nesting dolls of confusion and chaos. Some people might like that slapdash presentation, and I certainly don't hate it. It's just, yeah, I completely see where the critics are coming from with this one. It's experimental, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. Now, to distill all of that into numbers, now bearing in mind, I've had chance to watch the live performance and listen to the studio version a couple of times over, and the studio version does sound at least a bit better, but they carried it off well enough live. But yes, personal level, I'm inclined towards giving this one, honestly, a 7 out of 10. I nearly went with a 6, I nearly went with a 5, then back up to a 6, that lands on a 7, and yeah, I changed my mind several times with this one, which shouldn't come as much of a surprise. The thing is, I actually don't mind listening to this song. I'll enjoy the 3 minutes that it's on stage for. If this is the weakest song of 2020, then it's still gonna be a great year. But I find it rather tough to reconcile the jagged and mismatching pieces that this song tries to blend together and presenting it in a surreal way that just makes it worse. Whereas Australia's off-piste approach solidifies the song's identity and gives it charm, grace, and charisma, Latvia's interpretation of that just comes across as another aspect that was just thrown at this song, alongside the different musical styles contained within that just so happened to stick during the writing phase. Goodness knows how many early demos of this one sounded, and yet, it's grown on me over time. This might be my Belarus 2019 of this year, you know, my obligatory annual trash baby. For all of those reasons, in both directions though, on one hand, I want to be forgiving and go a bit higher, but at the same time, I feel like the song struggles to earn more than a 3 out of 10 from my jury brain. To reiterate, the individual ideas that it brings to the table are great in isolation, but they're not presented in isolation. Does anyone remember that scrapped interval act from 2014 where in the Eurovision of the future they had to have 5 songs all performing at the same time so the contest wouldn't last over 2 weeks? This is that, but somehow it's all just one song. There is potential, certainly, and I would love to see that potential capitalised upon. But it's so deeply entangled amongst all the other conflicting ideas that there's just not really any way of making it work in my mind. It's a guilty pleasure for me, but not really anything substantial beyond that, unfortunately. So, how's Latvia looking in the bigger picture? Honestly, I'm sick of being so negative, and I'll highlight that, to me at least, this song is at least more fun than last year's offering, but Latvia's kind of been on a hiding to nothing lately. I might even call it a nosedive. 2017 and 2018 I will defend and say they were underrated because those were excellent songs that just didn't get the time of day that they deserved, but even factoring those in, Supernova as a format has been stagnating something fierce, and honestly, you want me to spill some tea? It was never a good show to begin with. Put it this way, if Aminata hadn't competed in 2015 and gotten them the result that she did, I doubt Supernova would still be going now. Remember, that first series consisted of a final show that was several hours long to present 4 songs. That was painful to watch, and that experience has stuck with me to this day. And while the format has been ironed out and improved over the years, I won't dispute that, the quality of the songs has remained a consistent sea of meh, with the occasional diamond in the rough. I'm not going to even touch the theories on top of that the fandom has had that this year's edition was maybe not rigged per se, but certainly heavily weighted in Samanta's favour by the broadcaster. I can't prove that. I've heard people say it, I've not looked into it, I don't care, I don't want to hear it. But just, Latvia is capable of producing good songs, but Supernova, at least from what I've seen, is just not the best way of showcasing that anymore, and I question whether it ever was to begin with. So, to round things out, will it qualify? The optimist in me wants to believe that this song at least has something of a shot, because what it loses in cohesion and broad appeal, it makes up for in its own self-assured identity and generally bombastic presence. But realistically, the fandom has kind of already decided to completely bury this one. I've seen a load of varied my top whatever so far lists, putting all manner of different songs in the top spot and mid-table, but Latvia has almost always been consistently bad in those lists. Like, it's always been near the bottom. If nothing else, Latvia has failed to qualify with better, more coherent, more broadly appealing songs than this, so unless a miracle happens, which isn't impossible mind you, it's Eurovision, anything can happen, I can kind of easily see this getting buried in the semi-finals, but to be honest, I kind of think it would be a bit of a shame to lose it. I don't hate this song, I just don't love it as much as I'd like to, but that's just me. Let me know what you think. Are you on Team Tess here? Are you willing to give this song another shot? Or have you had enough of this? Because that's valid too. Either way, iCard, let me know how you feel. And yeah, we can discuss this in the comments, but while we're doing that, I will say, Samanta, congratulations on finally getting to Eurovision, and I wish you the very best of luck, because if you can make this work, more power to you. See you in May.